All right, I want to talk to you about a story that was in the news that I sort of had a glimmer about a little while ago. Remember, I came into the studio and I had heard on NPR that one of the documentaries that was up for Best Documentary for the Oscar, it turned out not to win. The one that won was Inside Job or something like that, the one that I want to see about Wall Street. But the other one was about this fracking, and it's spelled F-R-A-K-K-I-N-G, Hydro-Fracking, and it's about the pollution that has ensued and the collaboration to date between the natural gas industries and actually our Environmental Protection Association, as well as a Republican Congress in 2005 that overturned basic safety measures that would have required the water to be tested whenever it was tampered with. And I'll make it really easy for you. In order to extract natural gas from the ledge, from the earth and the shale and the rock underneath the dirt, they have to shoot it with a tremendous force of water. But it isn't water. It's water mixed with benzene. It's water mixed with a bunch of carcinogens, 548 chemicals to be exact. And the water that then comes out, in other words, the mixture of water, is irradiated. It actually has radioactive sort of contamination effects on people and on animals and on plants. And so what's happened is that the shooting into our environment has turned out to pollute groundwater, wells, and even rivers. And on Sunday, I think it was Sunday's New York Times front page article, Ian Urbina, who we're going to try and get on this show, wrote an extensive article about the tremendous amount of pollution that's already occurred in Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Colorado. And how the same kind of way of delivering new energy they want to do in Pennsylvania and half of New York State, 50 million acres, and they want to bring it to the watersheds of New York State. Now, what's interesting about this is that the article goes into depth and detail about how this polluted water ends up in our sewage system and how it can't be cleaned up. In other words, once this happens, it says, with hydrofracking, a well can produce over 1 million gallons of wastewater that is often laced with highly corrosive salts, carcinogens like benzene, and radioactive elements like radium, all of which can occur naturally thousands of feet underground. Other carcinogenic materials can be added to the wastewater by the chemicals used in the hydrofracking itself. And this says, while the existence of the toxic wastes has been reported, thousands of internal documents obtained by the Times from the Environmental Protection Agency, state regulators, and drillers show that the dangers to the environment and health are greater than previously understood. And here's the problem. The wastewater, which is occasionally hauled to sewage plants which can't treat it, is then discharged into rivers that supply drinking water. And they show people, there's one person who eloquently says, and she sort of says it because she doesn't want to be accused of this. She goes, I'm not a Democrat. Right? Like, God forbid, if she was a Democrat, it would mean she was a monster with two horns. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a politician. I'm not an activist. I'm just somebody who can't drink the water in my house. And she talks about the contamination and all of it. It's really terrible. It says many EPA scientists are now alarmed, warning that the drilling waste is a threat to drinking water in Pennsylvania. And there was a 2009 study that was never made public. Hello, red flag there. Written by an EPA consultant who concluded that some sewage treatment plants, in fact, were incapable of removing certain drilling waste contaminants and were probably violating the law. Now, you need to know about this. The EPA has not intervened. They have not intervened. Okay? And in fact, federal and state regulators are allowing most sewage treatment plants that accept drilling waste not to test for radioactivity. You listening to this? They have not been tested for radioactivity since before 2006, even though the drilling boom began in 2008. There is no way of guaranteeing that the drinking water that is taken in by all of these plants is safe. According to John Quigley, who used to be Secretary of Pennsylvania's Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, he says, quote, "We're burning the furniture to heat the house." In shifting away from coal and toward natural gas, we're trying for cleaner air, but we're producing massive amounts of toxic water. And I leave you with this because this is something that we need to call our politicians on right now. They want it to come to Pennsylvania. They want it to come to New York. You know they're going to want it to come to Connecticut. We can't allow it. One of the precious, precious things that we have in New England, especially compared to the rest of the country, is clean drinking water. You know it and I know it. All you have to do is go to Arizona. You can't even drink the water from the tap. Go to Florida. It smells and it tastes bad. They're all living with the Brita filters. I can turn on my tap water in Westport and know that it's good water. I test it pretty regularly. I know what I'm doing. I had pretty good well water, and I have pretty good Aquarian safe drinking water. Is it perfect? Who knows? I wouldn't swear for anything. Is New York City tap water considered some of the best in the whole country? It absolutely is. Do we want to screw this up too? You know, this reminds me of the same analogy that the federal government did. And by the way, they are to blame for this. They are directly to blame for this because they were allowing a new kind of technology to occur without normal safeguards for our clean water. The federal government is 100% to blame for this, as well as the natural gas industry itself, which is being disingenuous and only in it for the bucks. It's disgusting. But I don't expect any different from the natural gas industry. I expect a lot more from a Democratic Congress. Where have they been for the last 2 years? Completely asleep. We had a Democratic Congress and we had Obama. One of the reasons I voted for Obama was because I thought he would protect my air and water. What a dismal disappointment. What a dismal disappointment. And by the way, since when did clean air and water become an issue of Republican or Democrat? I don't need to remind you, because you're educated, that the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act were passed under the Nixon administration, for God's sakes. Nixon was an environmentalist. You'd have to be a moron not to be an environmentalist. Everybody wants clean air and clean water. The people that are beholden to the lobbies come on both sides of the aisle. It is very unfortunate for the Republican Party that they've been identified with big business for so long, BP, big oil. But has Barack Obama been any better to BP than a Republican president would have been? I don't think so. The guy let them off the hook right away, didn't meet with anybody for 120 days. How much worse could a Republican president have been? At least Bush at some point visited Katrina. He didn't even go there for a long time. So I feel that all of this needs our absolute front and center attention, and I'm going to keep pushing it at you, because I have to tell you, if we don't start to demand clean water and clean air, and if we don't start to say there are lines which we will not cross, then nothing will get done. And we should be marching in the streets about this, not so much about union benefits. This is my view. You're listening to the Lisa Wexler Show.